Ohio State hits a crucial point in the cycle, but they still have the number one class and some big names left on the board. The Buckeyes have 23 total commitments right now. And in this video, I got Mick Walker from Letterman Row. We're going to break down some of Ohio State's top remaining targets. But first, Ohio State fans, do me a favor, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We are the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube when we need some Ohio State fans on board. So hit subscribe for me, please. All right. Bring on Mick Walker from Letterman Row. And Mick, in the last 24 hours, there's a big news dropping. Safety Trey McNutt has set a decision date for July 19th. Now, if this was March, I would be penciling Trey McNutt into Ohio State's class, but things have changed towards the end of spring and into summer. So heading into this July 19th decision date, where do you think Ohio State stands?
Yeah, I mean, heading into this July 19th decision day, like you said, I think we're looking at Ohio State kind of sitting in maybe at best second, maybe third. I think Florida made a lot of ground up this spring and summer with visits and whatnot, getting them on campus for the official. So they might be in second. I think Oregon is the clear favorite at this point with some of the RPM predictions that have gone in with the intel, with what Ohio State has heard, with what Oregon has obviously heard. But I don't think that's necessarily making it a recruitment that's over. I think the plan ever since Nashville, when I talked to Trey at the On3 Elite Series there, the plan's always kind of been to take an official visit to Ohio State in the season, along with taking an official visit to Georgia in the season. So I don't think, regardless if he commits to Oregon or Florida or wherever he may commit on the 19th, I don't think that necessarily ends his recruitment. That's just the current leader. I guess the team that has this commitment is headed towards signing day with it, but they will have to hold on and hold off Georgia and Ohio State from getting official visits and trying to flip them.
All right, so from what it sounds like, you feel like if he does, well, when he does make a decision on July 19th, it probably won't be Ohio State, but that doesn't mean it's over for the Buckeyes?
Yeah, I think the plan has always been, like I said, since Nashville when I spoke to him, that, hey, Ohio State probably was not going to get an official visit in the summer. It was going to be Oregon, USC, Florida, and then we found out the fourth one was Texas A&M, I believe, was kind of in that summer mix. So the plan was always that Ohio State wouldn't get the official visit in the summer, but they would get one in the fall along with Georgia. And I think if that's the case, that's beneficial for Ohio State to be able to kind of get them in an area where they can close. And Ohio State's also in a position where they're working out of a strength with Fahim Delane committed, Deshaun Stewart committed, Cody Haddad committed in the safety class, along with Naeem Offord and Devin Sanchez at the cornerback position. They're working at a position of strength, so obviously adding Trey McNutt is something they want to do. You want to keep the best players in Ohio at home, but it's something that they are still continuing to work on, and it's not make or break. It's more of if losing Trey McNutt would be more of a damage on the perception of in-state recruiting than it would be a giant loss in the class, but they're still going to be continuing to work on Trey until signing day, and I think Ohio State feels confident in getting that fall official visit. It's big. Obviously, his mom is in Cleveland with him. He has family up in Cleveland, siblings. He has a whole life up in Cleveland. So I think as time goes along, the idea of maybe moving all the way across the country to Eugene is going to be something that wears on him, and that's when you have Ohio State getting the official visit. Obviously, Ohio State hosts Michigan in the season, so that's a game you could look at, but there will be other games for Ohio State to host them for an official, and I think that's been the plan for a couple months now.
Yeah, Ohio State's secondary class is absolutely loaded, so they'd love to have Trey McNutt on board, but he is not going to make or break what Ohio State's doing in the secondary right now. All right. Moving on to the wide receiver position. Now, Ohio State already has a couple great wide receivers on board, but there's a couple more making decisions soon. I'm talking about Dalen McCutcheon, Phillip Bell, Jamie French, Vernell Brown. Buckeyes got a shot at any of these guys to finish out this wide receiver class, or would you focus on some other names?
Yeah, I think Jamie French is the one we can go ahead and cross off. I think that was really hot and heavy in the spring. I feel like both parties have kind of gone their separate ways, and Jamie's obviously focused on other schools like Texas and LSU and some of those other programs he's considered. When it comes to Vernell Brown, I think they had a great point there in the spring, like around the same time as Jamie French, where they felt like they had a lead and had some confidence in it. But obviously, as time's gone along, Florida, the legacy school, the nearby school, has been able to kind of tug on the heartstrings and seemingly has pulled ahead in this recruitment as he kind of approaches his decision timeline. And then with Dalen McCutcheon, they got him on campus for the official, but it never seemed like they were able to close that one down. And then you have FSU, who continued to prioritize him, continued to get him on campus, and it seems like they're leading. Then you turn to Phillip Bell, who is obviously he's another on 300 wide receiver and a guy from California that they've liked for a while. It seems like coming out of his official visit that Ohio State led, nothing to his USC official visit has seemingly changed that, because the on-3 prediction machine and the RPM still lean Ohio State. So I think if you're looking at one other guy for that class, it would be him. They did offer Preston Bowman, a Kentucky wide receiver commit from Pickerington, Ohio, later in the summer. But I think that's more dependent on Preston Bowman showing Ohio State that he's interested in flipping from the Wildcats, which a couple weeks after his commitment to Kentucky, he has not shown that. Mm-hmm. That could change this if he pops up on campus, though.
All right. We got to talk David Sanders. We know a few things about David Sanders. We know 3 things about David Sanders. 1, we know that he's going to commit on August 17. 2, we know Tennessee feels good. And 3, we know Ohio State feels good. Those 3 things probably will not change up until he decides. But what do you think ultimately will be the biggest determining factor if it falls in the Buckeyes' favor for David Sanders?
Yeah, that's about all we know. Speaking to his dad a couple of days ago, they don't even know a time for the 17th or the date that he's set to commit. So they're still working on all that. But when it comes to Ohio State and Tennessee, I think both schools have offered him a ton. They both have Darnell Wright for Tennessee, Paris Johnson Jr. for Ohio State. They have the NFL draft development. I imagine that every school has their without getting into the depth of it, that has their NIL component. Both schools have their NIL component for David Sanders allocated and properly aligned for what they were going to need to do. I think that when Ohio State, the biggest thing that can kind of bring them confidence headed into that August decision is their plan they have for David kind of off the field that Steve Wiltfong mentioned, and I spoke with David Sanders Sr. about it after the visit, but they set him up with to go tour the medical center at Ohio State, and he seemingly loved that. David wants to go into the medical field after he graduates, after his football career is done. So that was a big hit with him. They also did a great job with bringing over some Ohio State women's volleyball players to meet with David's sisters and hang out with her on Friday of the official visit to kind of make her feel at home. She's somebody that loves volleyball, so she enjoyed that. That's what his dad told me. And then even then, David's 2 younger sisters got to have a whole movie night with a couple of members of the staff and just enjoy the time around Columbus. So the parents could be with the coaches. David could be with the players and the coaching staff as well. So I think the plan they have for David off the field would be Ohio State's biggest trump card. I think that's the only thing really that may be able to separate him from Tennessee. I think when it comes to the NIL and what they have to offer with plans on the field, his relationships with commits, you reported on it at Nashville for the On3 Elite Series, but Tavian St. Clair and George McIntyre are both really in David Sanders' ear. Carter Lowe, who's another offensive tackle commit for Ohio State, is in David Sanders' ear a lot. So other than the off-the-field plan for David, I think everything's about equal as it can be heading in. Approaching a month or so until his decision in August.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. Is this recruitment even more important last year than maybe Jordan Seaton's was? Because it's kind of the same players. I mean, Colorado's not involved, and ultimately that's who landed Jordan Seaton. But both Ohio State and Tennessee were doing everything, and they felt really good heading into that decision. So it kind of reminds me of that from last season.
Yeah, I've heard you make this point a couple times on this. That's good. And I think it's really an interesting point because, like you said, these are the 2 schools that finished runner-up for Jordan Seaton. So somebody has to then, the next cycle, go out and get the number 1 offensive tackle or the number 2 offensive tackle on 3, which is David Sanders. And I think Ohio State, especially with how they've recruited the offensive line when it comes to just some of the misses they've had, they felt good about Jackson Lloyd. He went to Alabama. They felt good about a couple other guys in the past cycle and this cycle that have gone other places. So when you look at that, you can consider the misses, consider the tracker and the wins that Justin Fry, the offensive line coach, has collected. He's needing a one that can kind of carry, something that he can hold on to. So losing out on Jordan Seaton, being able to get David Sanders would be kind of his big win, something that Ohio State fans can kind of believe in him being able to win on the recruiting trail. So for both, I imagine Glenn Ellerbe and Justin Fry, it's kind of going to be your signature win, kind of a career resume building recruiting win on the trail.
Absolutely. A huge recruitment coming down to the wire here. All right, Ohio State Buckeye fans, talk to us. Let us know. Comment section below. How are we feeling about this class? How are we feeling about David Sanders, most importantly? Let us know. Comment section below. Well, you've made it to the end of today's video, but there's hundreds more videos on the On3 Recruits channel for you to check out. And also, while you're here, hit subscribe.